harmonica fell into the night, slow as drifting smoke above the river. Cold wind wandered underneath the bridge, carrying the smell of rain and rust. Streetlights tremble on the moving water, like broken gold dissolving in the dark. An old man sleeping near the station wall pulled his coat tighter through the cold. He stood beside the railing silently, holding fire between your shaking hands. The cigarette glowed against your face, then vanished softly in the wind again. That harmonica kept bending through the dark, low and weary, like a tired goodbye. Every note arriving half a second late, like memories struggling to survive. Some nights don't ask where you belong, they only ask you not to leave. With the last cigarette by the river, we watch the city fade. Every passing reflection looked lonelier in the rain. With the last cigarette by the river, your quiet voice remained, like an old harmonica, still crying through the pain. And all the things we couldn't say floated slowly down the waves. The final subway thundered far away, windows glowing underneath the bridge. A stray dog wandered through the empty park, searching through forgotten paper cups. You smiled without looking up at me, like someone carrying too many years, then whispered something lost inside the wind, too soft for even heaven to hear. The harmonica rose once more again, long aching notes against the freezing air, not trying hard to sound beautiful at all, just honest enough to break the silence. Maybe every river keeps the voices of all the hearts that stood beside it once. Maybe every lonely song survives because somebody needed it that night. With the last cigarette by the river, the darkness turned to blue. Every tired dream inside us still somehow made it through. With the last cigarette by the river, the cold began to ease, while the harmonica kept swaying through the midnight breeze. And somewhere underneath the dawn, our broken hearts kept holding on. With the last cigarette by the river, morning touched the shore, but the sound of that harmonica stayed forevermore. The river carried shadows toward the light. Smoke disappeared into the waking sky, and far beneath the pale and silver dawn, that harmonica still slowly cried.
Harmonica screamed across the road, sharp and lonely through the freezing dark. Truck stop neon trembling in the rain, while old engines groan beneath the clouds. Highway smell like gasoline and smoke, coffee burning somewhere in the back. An old jukebox fought against the storm, playing songs nobody asked to hear. You walked in slowly through the diner door, cold wind following behind your coat. Every tired worker looked away, like they already knew your kind of pain. Then the harmonica rose again, wild and cracked above the rattling room. Not soft or hidden in the atmosphere, but loud enough to shake the wooden walls. Some songs don't comfort broken hearts, they rip them open honestly. Oh, the rusty highway song, still bleeding through the night. Cry, cut straight through the light. Oh, the rusty highway song, still burning in my chest, like an old forgotten wound that never got its rest. And every lonely note it played sounded rough, but painfully alive. Rainwater rolled beside the parking lot, silver rivers underneath the signs. A trucker hummed along beside the bar, eyes buried deep inside his beer. You finally lit another cigarette, hands still shaking from the freezing wind. The harmonica exploded once again, long bending notes tearing through the dark. No polished beauty in the way you play, no careful softness holding back the pain. Just raw midnight air and rusted breath, pouring straight into the empty room. Maybe truth was never meant to sound clean. Maybe real hearts always crack apart. Maybe every wandering highway song only survives by staying rough. Oh, the rusty highway song, the storm kept rolling on, while that harmonica cried louder than the thunder overhead. Still breathing through the night. still alive inside my veins. That sound refused to let me go. Harmonica burst into the night, hard and ragged through the motel rain. Blue neon flickered over broken glass, while thunder rolled beyond the interstate. Room 12 smelled like whiskey and old smoke, a television buzz without a sound. The ceiling fan turned slow above the bed, like tired memories circling around. Outside the parking lot was shining wet, long truck lights stretching through the storm. You sat beside the cracked up radio, listening like your whole life hurts. Then the harmonica came screaming back, sharp enough to split the midnight air. Every bent note scraped against the walls like rusted steel dragged across the dark. Some nights don't heal a single thing, they only sing the truth out loud at the broken radio motel. The harmonica cried like hell, every lonely note kept falling like rainwater through the neon spell. At the broken radio motel, no dream survived untouched, but every rough and shaking chord still somehow meant too much. And all the silence in the room shattered when that harmonica blew. Coffee cups were scattered near the sink, half-burned cigarettes beside the phone. A waitress somewhere down the hallway laughed, then disappeared into the storm. You leaned your head against the window glass, watching headlights drown inside the rain. The harmonica tore across the dark again, wild and naked like a runaway train. No polished sadness anywhere tonight, no gentle pretty melodies to hide, just raw breath pushing through metal reeds and broken hearts too tired to lie. Maybe lonely people trust old songs because they never fake the pain. Maybe harmonicas survive the longest because they sound human when they break. At the broken radio motel, the whole story like every cracked and weary note refused to fully die. And somewhere underneath the dome, that old harmonica played on. At the broken radio motel, morning turned the sky pale blue. But the sound of that harmonica still carried me to you. The final harmonica bent one last note as rainwater faded from the road. And somewhere in the cold electric dawn, the motel slowly disappeared below. Harmonica cracked through the empty bar, slow and warm beneath the amber light. Smoke was curling toward the ceiling fan, like tired ghosts refusing to leave. The bartender polished cloudy glasses without looking up from yesterday's game. An old couple danced beside the jukebox as if time had somehow stopped for them. You sat quietly near the window side, tracing circles through the wooden dust. Rain kept knocking softly on the sign while neon flickered blue against your face. That harmonica returned again, long aching notes drifting through the room. Not clean or perfect in the way it played, but honest like a scar that never fades. Some hearts survive by making peace with all the nights they couldn't save. Through the whiskey and smoke, the memories came slow, like old highways disappearing under winter snow. Through the whiskey and smoke, your tired eyes still shine, like somebody guarding the last good part of life. And every bending harmonica note sounded like another goodbye. The cook was humming somewhere in the back, coffee burning softly on the stove. A trucker sleeping underneath his coat dreamed beside the buzzing radio. He finally laughed without holding back, and all the heavy air began to lift. Outside the storm kept rolling through the town, but somehow we no longer feared it then. The harmonica rose above the rain, wild and cracked but beautiful somehow. Every lonely note filled up the dark like fire warming frozen wooden walls. Maybe broken songs endure the longest because they carry pieces of the truth. Maybe every wandering soul on earth is only trying to be heard once more. Through the whiskey and smoke, the whole night breathes so slow. Every hidden sorrow finally let itself be known. Through the whiskey and smoke, your hands stayed close to mine, while the old harmonica kept
inside my mind. One final harmonica drifted low as chairs were turned upside down at dawn. And somewhere in that fading amber room, your shadow kept dancing with the song.
I'm on a burn through the cold night wind. Long wild notes over the empty fields. Telephone poles shook beside the road, while headlights drifted through the dark. An old gas station glowed beside the hills, coffee steaming underneath the sign. Truck tires hissed against the soaking road like distant waves rolling through the storm. You stood beside a rusted pickup truck, hands buried deep inside your coat. The wind kept pulling at your silver hair like Tennessee refused to let you go. Then the harmonica cried once more, hard and lonely through the freezing rain. Every bending note cut through the dark like an old wound opening again. Some roads keep calling out your name, even after all these years. Cold wind, Tennessee, still blowing through my soul like a harmonica crying down a broken southern road. Cold wind, Tennessee, your memory won't leave. Every lonely midnight mile still breathing underneath, and every burning harmonica line kept pulling me through the night. The diner waitress turned the chairs around. A tired country song played very low, and no man sleeping by the coffee machine dreamed beside the humming radio. You laughed softly through the cigarette smoke, but your eyes carried too much rain. Outside the thunder rolled across the fields like runaway trains without a stop. The harmonica rose above the storm, rough and raw against the shaking glass, not trying hard to sound beautiful, just honest enough to make it last. Maybe some hearts belong
Maybe every harmonica at midnight is only trying to survive the dark. Cold wind, Tennessee, the whole sky turned dark blue, while that harmonica kept howling like it still remembered you. A cold wind, Tennessee, the rain began to fade, but every cracked and weary note still refused to drift away. And somewhere underneath the dawn, our younger selves kept driving on. Cold wind, Tennessee, morning crossed the hills, but that harmonica kept echoing through the silence still. One final harmonica floated low across the waking southern sky. And somewhere down the endless road, that lonely sound refused to die. The harmonica drifted through the snow, slow and tired beneath the window light. Coffee steam was fading near the glass, while midnight covered up the street. An old cafe was closing for the night, chairs upside down beside the walls. The owner wiped the counter silently as jazz disappeared into the dark. You wore that long brown winter coat again, hands hidden deep against the cold. Outside, the city moved like distant smoke, too far away to matter now. The harmonica returned so quietly, long aching notes hanging in the air, not trying hard to fill the empty room, just breathing softly through the silence. Some nights arrive without a sound and never really leave. Winter cold and you still living in my mind. That slow harmonica keeps turning like snow beneath the light. Winter cold and you, the whole cafe stood still. Every lonely little memory still resting by the windowsill, and every fading harmonica line felt colder than the night outside. The final bus rolled softly through the snow. Yellow lights dissolving in the storm. A tired waiter locked the front glass door, then vanished slowly down the street. You smiled without saying anything, like someone protecting fragile pain. The harmonica bent another note, slow enough to stop the world a while. No loud sorrow anywhere tonight, no dramatic storm inside the sound. Just quiet breath through metal reeds and two tired hearts avoiding goodbye. Maybe winter keeps old memories because the cold refuses to let go. Maybe harmonicas sound so lonely because breath disappears as soon as it's born. Winter cold and you, the snow kept falling down while that harmonica kept floating through the sleeping town. Winter cold and you, your shadow stays so near, like every soft and trembling note still breathing in my ears. And somewhere underneath the dawn, the silence slowly carried on. Winter cold and you, morning turned the sky pale blue, but that lonely harmonica still sounded just like you. One final harmonica faded low, the snowflakes drifted through the light, and somewhere in the quiet winter air, your memory stayed through the night.
Tiny raindrops gathered on the glass. Neon lights were trembling in the street. Someone played an old romantic song underneath the sound of clinking cups.
The waitress folded napkins near the door. A sleepy cat was hiding by the stove. Your scarf was hanging loosely on the chair, still carrying the perfume of the cold.
Outside the buses disappear like ghosts, while quiet conversations fill the room. You drew little circles on the table, like you were afraid to break the mood. Every lonely night is somewhere warm, waiting behind a fading light. At the Paper Moon Café, time was moving slow. Every little smile felt like falling snow. At the Paper Moon Café, nothing the world outside. The record player crackled soft and low. Old melodies were floating through the dark. You laughed before remembering the pain, then stared her quiet into your cup. A man beside the window closed his book. The baker carried fresh bread through the hall. And somehow in that tiny crowded room, no one really felt alone at all. Maybe we were only passing through, like strangers underneath December skies. But some places stay inside your chest, long after goodbye leaves your eyes. At the Paper Moon Café, the city lost its noise, and every silent soul slowly found a voice. At the Paper Moon Café, the rain became a song, and all the heavy nights didn't feel so long. For a little while, life was gentle as the light. At the Paper Moon Café, ooh, we stayed until the dawn. Watching shadows fade away, one by one. Morning settles softly on the floor. Coffee steam disappeared into the sun. And somewhere in the quiet afterglow, your small smile still lingered in the room.
Waves were folding softly by the pier. Seagulls circled through the silver sky. A broken radio beside the boats was barely singing through the ocean wind. Old fishermen were stacking empty nets, their tired hands moving slow with time. Coffee steam drifted from the harbor shop, like memories refusing to dissolve. You stood beneath the faded lighthouse glow, with salt upon the sleeves of your old coat. The evening carried whispers from the sea, too quiet for the world to understand. Some hearts never truly leave a place, even after years are gone. At the harbor of June, we watched the daylight fall, like faded postcards floating across the harbor wall. At the harbor of June, the air was cold and blue, but every lonely wave still carried me to you. And somewhere in the evening tide, our younger shadows stayed alive. The jukebox played a song from long ago, soft crackling underneath the melody. A couple danced beside the empty docks as orange lights reflected on the sea. You smiled the way forgotten summers do, half sadness and half warmth inside your eyes. And for a moment nothing felt too late, not even all the years we left behind. Maybe every road returns someday to the silence where it first began. Maybe every love becomes the sea, never ending, never fully gone. Ship looked smaller in the night. At the harbor of June, we didn't need the words. The ocean spoke enough for everything that hurt. And all the dreams we couldn't hold still shimmered softly in the cold. At the harbor of June, the stars burned far away, while somewhere past the waves our old song still remained. Morning slowly touched the sleeping boats. The radio finally lost its sound, and deep beneath the quiet harbor wind, your memory kept floating all around.
Taxi lights were sliding through the rain, tiny rivers running down the glass. Someone laughed beneath the flickering sign, then disappeared into the crowded dark. The bakery closed an hour ago, but coffee scent was floating through the street. A tired drummer smoking by the door tapped rhythm softly with his restless feet. Your umbrella leaned against the bench, drops of water shining on your hair. You stared somewhere beyond the avenue, like half your heart was already there. Every city hides a lonely song, waiting for someone to hear. At the world forgot to rush away. A newspaper rolled beside the curve. The final buses hummed like distant waves. Two strangers shared a cigarette nearby without exchanging names. You traced little patterns on the fogged up glass while jazz escaped a window overhead, and all the heavy noise inside my chest became softer than before instead. Maybe every crowded street at night is searching for a softer place to land. Maybe all the people passing by are only trying to be understood. At the velvet bus stop, the rain became a song. Every broken reflection kept glowing all night long. At the velvet bus stop, we watched the traffic fade like old memories dissolving into the midnight haze. And somewhere underneath the storm, our quiet hearts kept staying warm. At the velvet bus stop, the morning started near, but your fading silhouette still lingered in the mirror. The buses vanished one by one at dawn. Street cleaners washed the city into gray. And somewhere in the pale and waking light, your shadow slowly drifted into day.
Sunlight settled on the wooden floor. Dust was turning slowly in the air. An old man flipped the sign outside the shop, while distant traffic faded into blue. Shelves of records leaned against the wall, like forgotten letters from the past. Every cover carried different eyes. Every scratch remembered something lost. You walked in wearing yesterday's perfume, cold winter resting softly on your coat, then smiled at a melody nearby, like hearing part of your younger soul. The guitar from the speakers filled the room, warm and low, like fire against the rain. Not the kind that breaks the silence sharp, but the kind that slowly calls your name. Some songs never truly disappear, they just wait for lonely hearts. Dust on the record, still dancing in the light. Old voices drifting gently through another night.
weathered vinyl to your chest, like something fragile from another life. Then laugh the way old summer windows do, half happiness and half goodbye. A warm guitar kept rolling through the air, smooth as highway lights at midnight rain. Every chord arriving soft and full, like tired hearts learning hope again. Maybe every old song holds a place where broken people briefly feel complete. Maybe every crack inside the sound is proof that something real survived. Dust on the record, the evening turning gold, every spinning memory more beautiful with age. Dust on the record, your shadow next to mine, while the tired city disappeared beyond the shop outside. And all the nights we thought were gone came slowly singing back along. Dust on the record, still glowing through the dark, like tiny pieces of our lives, still breathing in the sparks. The final song kept playing very low, as neon lights reflected on the glass. And somewhere in that quiet little shop, the years no longer felt so fast.
Headlights wandered slowly through the fog, telephone wires sleeping overhead, a lonely diner glowing near the road, like the last warm place before the dawn. Truckers drank their coffee without words, steam rising underneath the yellow lights. An old waitress wiped the counter down, while country songs rolled softly through the room. Outside, the wind moved dust along the road, like faded memories that couldn't rest. You sat beside the jukebox half asleep, with tired moonlight resting on your hands. A harmonica drifted through the dark, slow and warm like someone missing home. Not loud enough to break the midnight air, just enough to make the silence breathe. Some roads never really
seem to end. They only fade into the night. Under the highway lantern, the world moves soft and slow. Every passing shadow had somewhere else to go. Under the highway lantern, your eyes looked ocean blue, and every lonely mile kept leading back to you, like an old harmonica, still crying through the wind. Rain began to whisper on the roof. Silver rivers running down the glass. A young mechanic humming to himself, folded newspapers near the empty booth. You trace little circles on the cup, like trying not to think too far ahead. The jukebox played another worn out tune, and suddenly the room felt smaller then. The harmonica returned once again, floating gently through the coffee smoke. Every note bending soft against the air, like old stories nobody ever told. Maybe life is only borrowed time, little lights beside enormous dark. Maybe love survives the longest roads by learning how to travel through the scars. Under the highway lantern, the rain became a song. Every tired traveler kept slowly moving on. Under the highway lantern, the night turned deep and gold, and all the broken dreams we had didn't feel so cold, like an old harmonica, still aching beautifully. Under the highway lantern, morning touched the sky, while somewhere past the endless road, our younger hearts survived. The diner lights grew smaller in the mist, engines disappeared beyond the rain, and far across the sleeping highway wind, that harmonica still called your name. Rain was falling sideways near the sign, blue neon trembling in the storm.
tired pickup sleeping by the road held little rivers on its hood. Room number 7 left the curtains cracked, television glowing pale and low. Someone down the hall was humming softly to a song from many years ago. He wore an oversized winter sweater, coffee warming slowly in your hands. Outside the thunder rolled across the hills like an old train vanishing again. A lonely harmonica appeared somewhere underneath the falling rain, soft enough to drift beside the silence, warm enough to ease the hidden ache. Some nights arrive too quietly and stay much longer than they should. In the blue motel rain, we let the hours pass, watching broken headlights disappear beyond the glass. In the blue motel rain, your shadow stayed so near, like an old unfinished melody still hanging in the air. And every drop against the roof sounded like forgotten truth. The ice machine kept buzzing in the dark, street reflections trembling on the floor. You smiled while turning pages of a magazine. Neither of us speaking anymore. Somewhere a radio played softly, warm guitars wrapped around the room. The harmonica bent another note, like it was afraid to leave too soon. Then you slowly leaned against the window, tracing little patterns through the steam. And for a moment all the restless years felt smaller than they'd ever seemed. Maybe every storm eventually finds a quiet place to disappear. Maybe every wandering heart is only searching not to feel alone. In the blue motel rain, the night turned dark and gold. Every lonely memory felt softer than before. In the blue motel rain, the silence felt alive, and all the roads we should have left still somehow felt like home tonight. Like an old harmonica crying low beneath the storm. In the blue motel rain, morning slowly came, but somewhere in the fading thunder, you still remain. The neon sign went dim before the dawn, rainwater sliding softly through the light. And far beyond the empty highway wind, your memory kept glowing through
through the neon blue, slow and heavy like a heart giving up. Rain rolled down the barroom windows while old whiskey lights burn low. Memphis smelled like smoke and gasoline, the jukebox trembling near the wall. Bartenders washed the same old glasses like nothing ever changed at all. You sat beneath the buzzing light, red lipstick fading on your cup. Outside the thunder crossed the river, but nobody inside looked up. Then the harmonica returned again, deep and aching through the room. Every cracked and weary note hung in the air like perfume. Some cities never sleep at night because too many hearts still hurt. In Memphis without you, the whole night felt too long. That harmonica kept crying like it knew where we went wrong. In Memphis without you, the rain kept falling slow, and every broken memory still refused to let me go. Like a lonely harmonica bleeding through the smoke. A tired waitress counted tips alone, country songs drifting from the back, an old man sleeping near the doorway held yesterday beneath his hat. You finally turned your eyes toward me, half sadness and half worn out grace. The harmonica bent another note, sharp enough to shake the place. No polished beauty anywhere tonight, no perfect dream left to defend. Just raw midnight blues and empty chairs and hearts too tired to pretend. Maybe love survives inside old songs because music doesn't turn away. Maybe harmonicas sound so human because they break before they heal. In Memphis without you, the neon lost its glow, but that harmonica kept burning through the silence and the smoke. In Memphis without you, your shadow stayed behind, like every rough and trembling note still echoing through my mind. And somewhere underneath the rain, the old jukebox played again. In Memphis without you, morning touched the street, but the harmonica was still crying underneath my heartbeat. One final harmonica drifted low as daylight crossed the empty bar, and somewhere in the pale Tennessee dawn, your memory stayed where the blues guitars
others are.
Harmonica ripped across the rain, hot and burning through the Dakota wind. Truck stop lights were shaking in the dark like tired stars refusing to go out. Wet boots echoed through the wooden hall. Coffee steam drifted near the counter lights. An old bartender humming to himself wiped the rainwater from the stools. You came in carrying the freezing storm, silver raindrops falling from your hair. Every eye inside the roadside bar turned for half a second, then looked down. Then the harmonica screamed once again, wild and crooked through the smoky room. Every bending note struck like lightning against the bottles and the buzzing signs. Some storms don't pass above your head, they stay buried underneath your ribs. Dakota rain blues still running through my veins. That harmonica kept howling like a runaway freight train. Dakota rain blues, your shadow stayed so near. Every broken midnight mile still breathing in my ears, and every rough harmonica cry made the whole room come alive. A waitress laughed beside the kitchen door, old country record spinning slow and low. A trucker sleeping in the corner booth, dream beneath the humming neon blue. You lit another cigarette in silence, watching rainwater race across the glass. Outside the highway road beyond the dark, like endless ghosts passing through the storm. The harmonica exploded through the air, not smooth enough to hide the pain tonight. Just raw breath tearing through metal reeds and lonely hearts trying to survive. Maybe broken songs stay with us longer, 'cause they never fake what sorrow means. Maybe every harmonica at midnight is another soul refusing to disappear. Dakota rain blues, the thunder kept rolling on, while that harmonica kept burning like fire before the dawn. Dakota rain blues, the whole bar shook with sound. Every shaking note kept rising like lost hearts finally found. And somewhere underneath the storm, we stopped pretending we were strong. Dakota rain blues, morning touched the road, but that harmonica was still alive inside the cold. last harmonica bent through the dawn as trucks disappear beyond the hills. And somewhere in the pale Dakota rain, that lonely sound was echoing still. The harmonica burned across the swamp, hot and lonely through the midnight heat. Mosquitoes danced around the broken lights, while thunder crawled above the trees. Oh, Louisiana smelled like rain and smoke, cheap whiskey drifting through the air. A tired blues band packed their cables slow as neon flickered over empty chairs. You stood outside beside the muddy road, one hand wrapped around your faded coat. Your eyes carried storms from years ago, too heavy for the night to hold. Then the harmonica rose again, sharp and aching through the southern dark. Every note bent hard against the wind, like rusted metal screaming in the rain. Some nights don't whisper anything, they howl straight through your bones. Louisiana midnight fire is still burning in my chest. That harmonica kept crying like a soul that couldn't rest. Louisiana midnight fire, the whole swamp breathed alive. Every rough and shaking note kept the darkness terrified. And somewhere underneath the storm, we still felt dangerously warm. An old bartender locked the front door while country blues rolled through the hall. Truck headlights drifted past the swamp like ghosts searching through the fog. You lit a cigarette against the rain, hands trembling underneath the light. The harmonica exploded once again, louder than the thunder in the sky. No polished beauty anywhere tonight, no soft romantic melodies to hide. Just hot southern wind and broken sound, and hearts too wild to stay inside. Maybe every storm becomes a song, somebody survives long enough. Maybe harmonicas sound like fire because they're born from breath and pain. Louisiana midnight fire, the rain came pouring down, but that harmonica kept rising above the swampy southern sound. Louisiana midnight fire, your shadow stayed with mine, while every cracked and burning note cut straight across the night. And somewhere underneath the rain, our younger ghosts still called our names. Louisiana midnight fire, morning touched the trees, but that harmonica was still screaming through the southern breeze. And somewhere in the wet Louisiana wine, that wild sound kept moving on. Harmonica roll like a midnight train, long blue notes through the pouring rain. River water shimmered under neon signs, while the city drifted half asleep. Old station lights flickered in the storm, taxi shadows crawled across the street. Coffee steam rose from the corner stand like tiny ghosts escaping through the dark. You stood beside the river in your coat, watching freight trains vanish through the mist. The harmonica cried above the tracks, like it still remembered every kiss. The slow guitar rolled in behind the sound, warm and low beneath the shaking sky. But the harmonica stayed out front, wild enough to make the silence move. Some nights carry old memories, like trains carrying rust through the rain. Neon river train, still rolling through my chest. That harmonica keeps calling, like a heart that cannot rest. Neon river train, your shadow stayed behind. Every lonely station light still burning in my mind, and every bending harmonica line sounded like goodbye tonight. The diner near the bridge stayed open late, truckers smoking underneath the sign. A waitress hummed an old familiar tune, while thunder echoed down the line. You smiled softly through the cigarette smoke, but your eyes looked colder than the rain. And the harmonica rose once again, sharp and blue like distant freight chains. No polished sweetness in the way it played, no careful softness covering the truth. Just raw breath moving through metal reeds, and hearts too tired to keep pretending. Maybe every train leaves something behind, little pieces buried in the dark. Maybe harmonicas survive so long because sorrow sounds honest through steel. Neon river train, the whole night shook with sound, while that harmonica kept burning through the rain in river town. Neon river train, the dawn began to rise, but every aching harmonica note still echoed through the sky. And somewhere underneath the storm, our younger souls kept moving on. Neon river train, morning crossed the rails, but that lonely harmonica still cried beside
the waves. One last harmonica drifted low as freight trains vanished into dawn. And somewhere by the neon river lights, your memory kept rolling on.
The harmonica danced across the desert wind, had bright notes over the fading sun. Dust rose softly through the motel lights, while old tires crackled on the road. Arizona smelled like heat and gasoline, dry thunder hiding in the distant hills. An ice machine buzzed beside the office door as tired travelers wandered through the dark. You stepped out underneath the orange sky, silver bracelet shining in the dusk. The harmonica jumped alive again, sharp and bright against the evening air. Not the deep lonely cry of winter nights, not the heavy blues of stormy bars, but quick rising notes full of restless heat, like headlights racing through the dark. Some roads don't break your heart apart, they make it ache to keep moving. Arizona Dust Motel, still glowing in my mind. That harmonica kept dancing through the hot electric night. Arizona Dust Motel, your laughter drifted slow, like warm desert wind still blowing through the radio. And every bright harmonica phrase made the whole highway feel alive. The soda machine flickered blue and white, moths kept circling underneath the light. A young mechanic leaned against the wall, listening to old country songs alone. You poured cheap coffee into paper cups, then stared out past the empty parking lot. The harmonica rose above the heat again, fast little notes skipping through the air. No smoking, midnight sorrow in the sound, no freezing rain hanging from the chords, just restless desert breath and burning skies and hearts too wild to stay in place. Maybe some memories arrive like storms, but others come back warm as dust. Maybe harmonicas can sound like freedom when they stop crying and start running. Arizona Dust Motel, the stars began to shine, while that harmonica kept floating through the desert night. Arizona Dust Motel, the highway rolled ahead, every bright and shaking melody still left
That wandering harmonica still drifted through the land. One final harmonica climbed into the dawn. The sunlight touched the empty road, and somewhere through the endless Arizona wind, that melody kept moving on.
Train was humming through the dark. Cold silver rails were shining after rain. Someone left a newspaper on the bench, and midnight coffee slowly lost its steam. The station clock was breathing soft and low. A tired couple danced beside the gate. Streetlight shadows moved across your coat, like old memories trying not to fade. Your hands were buried deep inside your sleeves, but your eyes were warmer than July. Somewhere in the distance, engines cried, like they still remembered younger nights. We never knew how fast the years could run, until we watched them disappear. On the golden platform, you smiled without a sound, like nothing in this world could ever bring us down. On the golden platform, became so still, and every passing train carried pieces of our will. We were older than before, but somehow shining more. Morning lights were waking one by one, blue smoke floating through the sleepy air. The cafe owner turned the sign around, while old jazz wandered softly through the chairs. You brushed the dust away from vinyl songs, like touching something sacred from the past. Outside the city slowly came alive, but we kept holding on to moments last. Maybe life was never built to stay. Maybe love was always passing through, but every broken season led me here, standing in the quiet next to you. On the golden platform, the years no longer burned. Every scar became a road that finally returned.
We were strangers once before. Now we don't run anymore. On the golden platform, the sky began to glow. Like every dream we lost, still found a way back home. The final train dissolved into the dawn. Coffee smoke disappeared into the light. And somewhere underneath the waking sky, your quiet smile stayed with me all